Hi, I'm Yetta. It was supposed to be my birthday. My name was on the invitation. The cake was mine. I even paid for the paper plates. But that night, my sister announced she got a job in New York. And just like that, my party wasn't mine anymore. They applauded her while I cleaned frosting off the floor. The next morning, my mom found something I left on the kitchen table. She screamed, but it wasn't the sound that stayed with me. It was the silence that came after, when nobody asked why. What would make a daughter take her whole family to court, right before giving birth? And why didn't I stop it? Because by then, they'd already erased me. Wouldn't you want to know how? I spent 2 weeks planning the whole thing, from the paper lanterns I strung up in the backyard to the delicate frosting on the carrot cake I ordered. Everything had my fingerprints on it. I didn't hire a party planner. I didn't ask for help, mostly because I knew no one would offer. And even if they did, they'd turn it into something else. Something not mine. It was supposed to be simple. A late afternoon gathering with soft acoustic music, light drinks, and polite conversation. My kind of celebration. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. Just family, a few friends, and maybe a chance, just one, to feel seen. The guests arrived in waves. They kissed Vera on the cheek like it was her housewarming. She beamed, hands waving toward the garden as if she had hung the lights herself. I said nothing, smiled. I smiled so much my cheeks hurt. People asked where the bathroom was, complimented the playlist, asked who catered the sandwiches. I answered each question kindly because I was raised that way. Then came the moment I'd been dreading since I clicked order on that cake. My cousin set it down on the main table. It looked exactly like the photo. 3 tiers, pale pink roses, piped edges. But when I leaned in to read the message, it hit me. So proud of you! No name, no mention of a birthday, no age, no happy birthday Yetta. Just vague congratulations, like someone hedged their bets. Even the cake wasn't sure who it was celebrating. I tried to shrug it off. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone thought it was safer to go generic. Maybe, though I knew better, it wasn't personal. A guest wandered by, glass of rosé in hand. "Is this her birthday?" she asked another woman beside her. "I think it's for both sisters or something," the woman whispered back. I didn't correct them. I just watched them walk off toward the drinks table. Then it happened. Mom tapped her wine glass with a fork. The chatter faded. Everyone turned. I was midway through unwrapping a serving spoon when she smiled and said, "We just want to take a second to share something special before we cut the cake." I froze. Beside her, Callista was already beaming. She held up a sleek envelope, the kind you'd expect for a wedding invitation or a scholarship announcement. I knew that envelope. I'd seen it when I applied to grad school 12 years ago. Only difference? Mine was thinner. "I got it," Callista said, voice trembling with delight. "New York, full offer, editorial track." The backyard erupted, clapping, squeals. A few people even stood to hug her. Vera reached out to grasp Callista's hand with watery eyes. My aunt said, "We should have made this a going-away party." Laughter followed. Someone popped open a second bottle of Prosecco. No one looked at me. The cake I'd paid for stood in front of me, untouched. The roses seemed to sag under the weight of their ambiguity. I picked up a napkin and carefully wiped a line of frosting that had slipped down the side. I wanted to speak, not shout, not accuse, just correct the record. But what would I say? Actually, this was my birthday? That would sound petty. Ungrateful, like I was trying to steal thunder from my sister's moment. So I said nothing. I kept smiling. I made sure the kids didn't knock over the drink dispenser. I reminded someone where the extra napkins were. I threw out a stack of used paper plates. Later, inside, the kitchen was quiet. I opened the fridge and stared at the second cake box I had hidden in the back, just in case. It had my name on it, piped in mint green frosting. I imagined cutting it alone, eating it in silence. Instead, I poured myself tea, same mug, same motion, but it tasted like nothing. I carried the tea outside, steadying the mug with both hands even though it wasn't full. The sun had dipped behind the neighbor's roofline, and fairy lights strung across the pergola cast a soft, bouncing glow over the crowd. The music had shifted, something louder now, with bass that pulsed through the wooden deck. They were still celebrating. I moved slowly, weaving through clusters of guests, past a group gathered near the drinks table. Laughter spilled out in waves. I smiled when people made eye contact, nodded when they complimented the lanterns, the food, the ambiance. No one mentioned the cake. No one asked if I had made a wish. I paused when I saw the gift table, or what was left of it. It had been pushed against the fence, my carefully arranged display, now crammed between a folding cooler and a stack of Solo cups. The wrapping paper I had chosen to match the table runner, ivory with sage leaves, looked out of place next to red party buckets and half-empty chip bowls. A kid, maybe 6 or 7, tugged at one of the gifts, unwrapping it halfway before his mother caught him. "Oh, honey, that's not a party favor," she said, pulling the box from his hands. The boy pointed. "But it was next to the soda." His mother glanced at me, blinked. "Oh, I thought these were Callista's?" I said nothing, just gently took the gift and rewrapped it as best I could, pressing the paper crease with my thumb. She didn't apologize. I turned to walk back toward the kitchen when I heard it. Vera's voice, sharp and cheery. "Yetta, could you give me a hand in here?" I walked inside. She was rinsing a glass, Callista sitting on a bar stool nearby, scrolling her phone. "Callista's exhausted," Vera said, not looking at me. "Too much excitement. Could you start clearing the deck? Maybe wipe the tables down? There's sticky stuff everywhere." Callista didn't even glance up, just murmured, "Thanks, Yed." That was the part that did it. Not the cleaning, not the being told, not asked, but the assumption, like I was the hired help, expected and invisible. The whole house had that rhythm, where I was only noticed when something needed to be done. I didn't speak. I stepped outside, grabbed a roll of paper towels and the all-purpose spray from under the sink, and went back out to the deck. People were still lingering, standing around, chatting, dancing to whatever playlist Callista had switched to. I slipped between them, wiping down the picnic tables. A few nodded at me like I was part of the wait staff. Someone moved their drink to the side without making eye contact. Another leaned across and said, "You mind grabbing a trash bag? This stuff's starting to pile up." I did as they asked. The table nearest the fire pit had a spill. Orange soda, maybe. It had run down the leg and pooled near the steps. I knelt to clean it, the hem of my dress dragging into the wet patch. Nobody paused. Nobody offered a towel. They stepped over me, around me. One nearly tripped, muttered, "Whoops!" and kept walking. I stayed there, hands sticky, knees damp, scrubbing until the wood stopped reflecting the string lights. I didn't know why I was doing it anymore. Maybe this is my role, I thought. Set the stage, sweep it after, let others shine. But even as I thought it, something cracked. A voice deep inside that whispered, "What if it didn't have to be?" I stood slowly, pressing my hands against my thighs to wipe the moisture off. My palms left faint imprints on the fabric. Across the yard, Callista was laughing. She had changed into something looser, more comfortable, wine in hand, surrounded by a ring of admirers. She didn't look at me once. As I turned to head back inside, a woman called out, "Is it okay if we move this table? We need more room for the drinks." I nodded. Of course. I always nod. I stepped into the kitchen and grabbed a handful of napkins to clean my hands. The paper tore against the tacky syrup, so I reached for a dish rag instead. As I wiped, I heard a rustle behind me. A teenager tossed a half-wrapped box into the black trash bag leaning against the counter. He didn't hesitate, didn't glance at the tag. It was mine. He moved on. I didn't stop him, I just watched. But something inside me stirred. Not rage, not sadness. Resolve. The next morning, the house felt like a ghost of the chaos it held the night before. No music, No laughter echoing from the backyard. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the creak of floorboards that needed fixing a decade ago. I padded barefoot into the kitchen, wrapped my fingers around a mug, and waited as the kettle hissed to life. The sunlight pushed through the curtains in long stripes, dust dancing in the beams like it had all the time in the world. I didn't. With coffee in hand, I sank into the bench by the window. The same window where Mom kept her succulents. Tiny green things she watered with more devotion than she ever gave me. I opened my phone and tapped into social media. Notifications rolled in like waves. Photos tagged, reels shared, stories reposted. I clicked one out of habit. My thumb hovered over the screen. Callista was center stage in every shot, beaming, toasting, hugging Vera. Even when the background changed, from the deck to the fire pit, she remained the nucleus. And me? I wasn't in any of them. Except one. Just my arm, cropped in at the edge, holding a tray of drinks. One of the captions read, "Grateful for this beautiful send-off." Another had the nerve to say, "Callista's always been the heart of this family." I didn't even flinch. I'd stopped expecting fairness a long time ago. A comment caught my eye. Was this her graduation party or something? Someone else replied, "No, just a spontaneous celebration. She deserves it all." Deserves it all. I'd paid for the cake, the lanterns, the napkins, even the biodegradable forks Vera insisted on because image matters. A throat cleared behind me. I didn't look up. Vera stepped into view, robe cinched, holding her own cup like she'd been awake longer than me. She glanced at my screen. "Oh, that was such a nice picture of you two by the lights." "We weren't both in it," I said. She waved her hand. "Well, you know what I mean." I didn't respond. She sipped, then sat across from me, as if this was just another Sunday chat. "Remember when Callista used to give you her dolls because you didn't have any? Always so generous, even as a little girl." I stared at her. "That's not what happened. I gave her mine. The big one. You told me to share because she cried." Vera blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Well, memories blur, Yetta. Let's not dig into the past." Memories don't blur. They get rewritten by the people who shout loudest. I set my mug down and stood. Walked down the hallway lined with photo frames. The family wall. Moments frozen in glass. There was Callista in her cap and gown. Callista at Disney. Callista holding a trophy for something I couldn't remember. I scanned the images until I found one I knew had been mine, my 10th birthday. I remembered the dress, the balloons, the dog that ran across the yard mid-candle wish. Only the frame said, "Callista's 10th." My fingers traced the edge of the glass, then dropped to my side. "You always kept to yourself," Vera called from the kitchen. "We just assumed you didn't want attention." They assumed it, so they stopped offering it. Back in the kitchen, I opened the drawer where we kept random batteries and expired coupons. Buried beneath it all was a photo, faded, folded at the corners. I pulled it out. It was my 8th birthday. I knew because of the lopsided cake I made with Dad before he left. I remembered the icing smeared across my face, the mismatched candles we had to light 3 times because of the wind. But in this picture, I wasn't at the front. Callista was, holding the knife, wearing my crown. I flipped it over. In Vera's handwriting, it read, "Callista's big day, again." I sat with that photo a little longer than I meant to. My fingers smoothed its creased edge, but no amount of pressing could undo what had already been imprinted on the back. Callista's big day. Again. I slipped the photo into the side drawer of my nightstand, pushed it closed, and stood. The air in the house had shifted. More voices now, the clink of silverware, smells of leftover chicken salad, and lukewarm coffee filtering from the kitchen. The party was gone, but its echo lingered. I passed the living room without looking at the wall of framed smiles. Vera and my aunt stood near the sink, heads leaned close like middle schoolers whispering behind lockers. I slowed without meaning to. "She's always been sensitive," my aunt murmured, voice low, but not low enough. Callista, though, she's got grit, knows how to take the spotlight. Vera made that soft chuckle she does when she agrees, but doesn't want to say it outright. She hummed, like it confirmed something long understood. Neither of them noticed me standing there. I stepped back quietly and turned toward the garage, telling myself I was looking for the folding tablecloths. Anything to get me out of earshot. The garage was cool and dim, smelling faintly of dust and old mulch. I moved a bin to get to the shelf where we stored holiday decorations. That's when I saw it. A small box wrapped in navy blue paper with silver ribbon, wedged behind a stack of unused Halloween lights. A tag was taped to the side. In my best friend's handwriting, "Happy birthday, Yetta! You matter!" I blinked, stared at it like it had grown legs. It wasn't on the gift table yesterday. It wasn't even near the party. Vera must have shoved it in here, out of sight, where it wouldn't clutter the aesthetic she'd curated. I held the box like it might break and stood still for a full minute, trying to figure out what to feel first. It wasn't anger. It was exhaustion dressed in new clothes. I carried it upstairs, didn't unwrap it, just placed it gently on my nightstand next to the photo drawer, and sat on the edge of my bed. Keep things low-key so no one feels awkward, Vera used to say about my birthdays. And I used to believe her. But low-key always meant quieter, smaller, easier to ignore. It meant one balloon instead of 5, a text instead of a call, an excuse instead of presence. Low-key wasn't for my comfort. It was for their convenience. They never say, "Don't celebrate me," I whispered to no one. They just move the celebration somewhere I can't reach. I walked back down the stairs. Vera was alone now, folding a dish towel at the sink. She looked up as I entered, like she hadn't seen me all morning. "You hungry? There's a few chicken sliders left," she offered, casual. "I found the gift in the garage," I said evenly. She paused, blinked. "What gift?" "From Ellie, the one with the silver ribbon." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Oh, right. I just thought it didn't match the rest of the setup. You know how clutter ruins photos." "Photos where I'm not even in them," I replied. Her face flushed. "I didn't mean anything by it." "That's always the excuse, isn't it?" I kept my tone calm. "Meaning well, but somehow I'm always the one erased." She didn't answer. I didn't wait for one. Upstairs again, I stared at the blue-wrapped box. I didn't touch it, didn't shake it, or wonder what was inside. That wasn't the point. It wasn't the gift. It was the fact that someone thought I was worth giving one to, and someone else decided it wasn't worth being seen. I left it on the table beside my bed, unopened, but no longer invisible. Monday started with the familiar whir of my ceiling fan and the smell of overbrewed coffee. I had woken up before my alarm, not because I was eager to get to work, but because sleep had stopped offering rest. I padded into my home office, the one place no one else touched. It wasn't fancy, just a desk, a secondhand chair I'd refinished myself, and a bulletin board cluttered with receipts, sketches, and a few photos that hadn't been edited to erase me. I flipped open my laptop, ready to drown myself in spreadsheets and logistics. But there it was, red bubble blinking in Slack. I clicked. "Morning, Yetta. We got a weird email over the weekend. Thought you should see it." Attached was a screenshot. The sender was anonymous, the kind that hides behind pseudonyms, and a Gmail address created 3 hours before sending. But the tone, that I recognized. Yetta has a tendency to react emotionally under pressure, may lack the temperament to lead during scale-up phases. A direct quote, not just in spirit, word for word, from something Vera had once said at a family brunch. Back then, it was when I dared to suggest I might expand my business. She had sipped her mimosa and said, "Are you sure you're ready? Pressure brings out the worst in some people." I stared at the email, my hand frozen on the mouse. Then, without a word, I screenshot it. Saved it in a folder already waiting, labeled Receipts. That wasn't a metaphor, that was the real name, and the folder was filling up fast. I didn't forward it to my partner, not yet. I didn't say anything out loud. Silence, I'd learned, made people nervous in ways shouting never could. Instead, I took a breath and started organizing the rest of my inbox, moving financial documents into one folder, invoices into another. My coffee cooled beside me. Then came the text. It buzzed against the desk, screen lighting up with a message from Vera. Long, too long for a check-in. I clicked. Callista's already dealing with a lot right now. I know things got a bit messy, but I don't think dragging legal stuff into it helps anyone. Family is more important than paperwork. We're stronger when we support each other, not when we threaten each other. I stared at it, reread it 3 times. It wasn't a plea. It was a warning dressed in a hug. I typed only 5 words in reply. I agree, family should be. Then I set my phone down and opened my legal tab. They thought I'd explode, that I'd call or text back in rage, maybe even cry. They were always waiting for that, some emotional storm they could point to and say, "See? She's unstable." But I'd learned something growing up in that house. If you want to terrify people who manipulate emotion, stay calm. So I did. I downloaded the revised contract from the county site, the one I was mysteriously removed from. I saved a copy next to the folder of screenshots and deed photos. Then I went to my calendar and booked a consultation with my lawyer for 9:30 the next morning. Just a 30-minute slot. Just enough to start the shift. Not a fight. A correction. Before I logged off, I clicked back into the folder and right-clicked Receipts. Rename. I typed Inheritance of Silence. Active. Because for years, I thought keeping peace meant keeping quiet. Now I understood. Silence isn't submission, it's strategy. The following morning arrived with a cold draft sliding beneath the dining room door. I moved through the house like someone preparing for a storm. Quiet, precise, already soaked on the inside. No one else was awake. Vera and Callista had stayed up late in the living room the night before, laughing too loudly over a second bottle of wine, while some show played on mute behind them. I stepped into the small office near the garage, the one Vera called her paper hub. It was more like a junk drawer in room form. Tax folders, warranties for appliances we no longer owned, dog-eared instruction manuals. I was looking for a copy of last year's tax return. Instead, I found something else. A thick envelope, slightly creased, tucked under a stack of Homeowners Association newsletters. I pulled it free. The notary seal caught the morning light like a slap. It was the updated deed. And my name wasn't on it. Just Vera and Callista. I stared at the document, blinking once, twice, willing my brain to misread what was clearly there. Then I remembered. I had signed the original mortgage with them 6 years ago. My credit was stronger, my business more stable. They couldn't get the loan without me. I paid more than half the down payment. But now? I was a ghost in ink. My hand trembled, but not from fear. From understanding. From the kind of clarity that no longer needs emotion to validate it. They needed my credit, I whispered. Now they don't even need my name. I took the envelope upstairs, laid it gently next to the copy of the original I'd kept tucked in my own drawer for years. The one that still said Yetta Mae Collins, co-owner, signed, dated, and filed. That night, as the TV glowed blue and Vera and Callista passed a cheese plate back and forth, I moved through the kitchen with practiced ease. They didn't notice me, and I didn't need them to. I placed the original deed, printed clean, crisp, next to the toaster. Then I added a sticky note. This is what I signed. This is what I still have. I didn't need a scene. I needed a signal. The next morning, the scent of Earl Grey reached the hallway before I heard her gasp. I entered just in time to see Vera frozen mid-pour, kettle in one hand, the paper in the other. "What is this?" she snapped, voice already rising. "Why would you bring this up now?" I stayed by the doorway, calm. "Because you thought I forgot," I said. "I didn't. I documented." Her eyes darted from me to the page, to the sticky note, then back. "Don't weaponize old paperwork, Yetta." "Then stop acting like history doesn't count when you rewrite it." She opened her mouth again, but before the words landed, Callista entered the kitchen, still in her robe, phone in hand. She took one look at the paper. Her face didn't move, but her eyes hardened. "You've been waiting to do this." I met her gaze. "No," I said. "I wasn't waiting. I was preparing." Callista didn't say another word. She stared at me for a beat too long, then turned away, her robe swinging like a curtain drawn shut. Vera followed after her without a sound, leaving the kitchen heavy with everything unsaid. By evening, the tension in the house had vanished, at least on the surface. Vera was back in her role: hostess, matriarch, the smiling woman who arranged brie slices just so on a ceramic platter. She had invited a few neighbors over, plus two of Callista's old college friends who were passing through town. It was supposed to be a send-off dinner. Something intimate and joyful, her words. I stayed in my room until the voices grew loud enough to fill the house. Then I came down, dressed in the same soft gray sweater I wore when I didn't want to be looked at too closely. No one noticed me slip in. Or if they did, they didn't say anything. The projector was already set up in the living room. A makeshift screen hung against the bookcase, with folding chairs pulled into semi-neat rows. Callista stood near the front, laughing with a hand on her hip. Her hair was curled, her smile wide. Then she dimmed the lights and hit play. The montage began with a baby photo, her, not me. Then preschool, piano recitals, debate club, graduation. A few clips were familiar, pulled from old family tapes. In one, I could be seen off to the side, blurred, passing a cup to a cousin. In another, I was adjusting a camera angle before disappearing entirely from the shot. Uplifting music swelled. On the screen, the caption read, "This family built me, especially Mom." The room erupted in applause. Vera sniffled beside the screen, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "My baby," she whispered. I didn't move. I didn't clap. Someone leaned over and whispered, "You must be so proud." I offered a closed-lip smile, the kind I'd practiced in mirrors and staff meetings, the kind that meant, "Please leave me out of this." After the video, Callista raised a glass. "I wouldn't be where I am without this house, this family, everything I've become. It's because of you all." Another wave of clapping. Someone let out a whoop. She added, "And to my sister, Yetta's always been steady, quiet strength. We don't say it enough, but we notice." Everyone turned to look at me. I stayed seated near the kitchen archway, back straight. "Yetta," one of the neighbors said, "do you want to say anything?" I looked at the people in that room, some who'd called me Callista by mistake, others who hadn't spoken to me since the cake went untouched at my own birthday. "No," I said, voice clear. "Nothing that hasn't already been said. Clearly." A few chuckled, not sure if it was a joke. I stood, nodded once at no one in particular, and walked out before dessert. Not in anger, in clarity. Upstairs, I opened my laptop and logged into my private drive, the one I kept for contracts, documentation, the things that mattered when words failed. I created a new folder, dragging in the scans. The deed, the email from the anonymous, concerned party, the note Vera had once handwritten to a notary. I hovered over the folder name, then renamed it, Evidence Now. Let them have their claps and toasts. I had the truth. By Thursday evening, the table was set like nothing had happened. Vera had gone all out. Her vintage lace runner stretched across the wood, crystal glasses lined up as if the queen herself might swing by. Callista had chosen the playlist, of course, something light, jazzy, smug. I recognized a few tracks from her high school graduation dinner. That one was also supposed to be a shared event, and somehow I ended up doing dishes while she got flowers. I didn't dress up. I wore black. Not for mourning, just for armor. Vera greeted me at the door with a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. "Let's just clear the air tonight, okay?" she said. I nodded once and stepped inside. The guests were familiar, but not welcome. No one from my side. Just Vera, Callista, and the cousins who never made eye contact unless there was gossip to collect. I took my seat, deliberately choosing the chair farthest from the head. Dinner began with salad and surface-level talk. Vera asked about Callista's packing schedule. Callista giggled about trying to fit her shoe collection into 2 suitcases. I let it play out. Fork, knife, chew, nod. Then Vera pivoted. "We need to talk about the house," she said gently, folding her napkin with theatrical calm. "It's just, things are shifting. Callista's move, our finances." Callista jumped in. "It'd be easier if you just signed off, Yetta. No lawyers. Just family." I sipped my water and pulled out my phone, clicked the file I'd queued in notes. Hit play. Vera's voice filled the room. "We already fixed the paperwork. She'll either sign or get forced out." The fork in Callista's hand slipped, clinking against her glass. Vera's eyes widened. "You recorded me?" I didn't blink. "You called it a conversation. I called it a plan." The silence wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. Before anyone could recover, my phone buzzed again. A notification from Facebook. I tapped it open. My stomach didn't flip. My breath didn't hitch. It was just confirmation. A post from Nina, an old friend we both once shared. She had written, "We always knew who did the work behind the scenes. It's just sad to see the loud ones take credit." Attached was a photo, blurry from the birthday party. Me, setting up decorations while Callista posed in front of the cake. I held the phone up, turned it around, and laid it gently on the table like evidence in court. Callista scoffed. "You made this public?" I leaned back, voice steady. "You made me invisible. I just turned on the lights." Nobody reached for their wine. I pulled a manila envelope from my bag and slid it across the table. "Certified notice," I said. "Ownership dispute, filed this morning." Callista stood so fast her chair screeched. "You're doing this now? After everything this family has done for you?" I met her eyes. "You mean like deleting my name from the deed? Or throwing my gifts in the trash? Or cropping me out of every picture that didn't need a scapegoat?" Vera's voice trembled. This isn't how family works." I smiled, just slightly. "Exactly. This is how survival works." The next morning was quiet, in the way empty rooms are after a fight. I left the house before either of them woke, avoiding the kitchen like it might still echo with the last thing Vera said. I drove downtown with the windows cracked. Sacramento air in spring has this thinness to it. Still cool, but it carries every smell. Coffee shops opening, trees blooming, and asphalt that remembers yesterday's heat. I parked behind the building and took the side stairwell up to the co-work space I shared with 2 other women-owned small businesses. No one else had arrived yet. Perfect. Inside, I flipped on the overheads and dropped my bag by the window seat. The sun hadn't caught the glass yet. I powered up my laptop and reached for the folder marked Pending External Grants. That's when my phone rang. It was Jeff, one of our recurring community partners, someone who had always been respectful, collaborative. I picked up. "Hey, Yetta," he said. "Quick question. Was your sister looped in on your last proposal?" My pulse stuttered. "No. She's not part of the project." There was a pause. "She submitted a deck to the board, called herself your strategic advisor, claimed she co-founded the initiative." I didn't respond right away. "She had stats," he continued, "from your own impact reports, client metrics." Her tone was polished, but not informed. I asked him to email it. When it came through, I stared at the PDF like it might disappear. But there it was. My language, my vision, my results, repackaged with her name stamped in at every pivot. That afternoon, I met Nina for lunch, same booth we always shared at the diner on P Street. She could tell I wasn't hungry the moment I sat down. "They're not done yet," I said quietly, pushing my water glass in a slow circle. "Who?" she asked. "My family." She waited. I rarely said that word out loud. I told her about the grant, about the pitch, about the theft. Nina didn't flinch. She never did. Then I told her about something else. A memory. Not a new one, just one that had finally resurfaced. I was 12, Callista 15. It was the weekend of my school talent show, and I was set to perform a monologue I'd written myself. Vera had helped me memorize it. That morning, she told Callista, "Let your sister have the spotlight today." Callista had sulked, stayed upstairs until just before the show. When we pulled up to the school, she stepped out in a sequined dress and heels, borrowed lipstick shining. On the way in, Vera leaned close to her and said, "Don't shine too much, or Yetta will feel small. You know how sensitive she is." I remembered that line now, not as protection, but projection. Nina looked at me, brow furrowed. "They made you responsible for their comfort, and called it kindness." I nodded. Back at the office, I drafted the dispute. Formal language, referenced proposal ID numbers, stated that no external representation was authorized. That co-founder status was inaccurate. Before I hit send, I opened my voice recorder and pressed record. "This is Yetta Collins. Any statements, pitches, or presentations made in my name moving forward must be authorized by me directly. This serves as formal notice that all business-related matters are to be handled through this account or my legal counsel." I saved it, filed it with the rest. No rage, no name-calling, just fact, just clarity. They always thought I wouldn't fight because I was quiet. They forgot quiet is how you hear everything. I hit send on the email. Seconds later, a new one appeared. "Confirmation. Your notice has been received and logged. We have forwarded your statement to Ms. Callista Collins per request." I leaned back, took a breath, and whispered, "Let them explain why they needed me, now that I've removed myself." 2 nights later, I walked into the restaurant like I had a reservation with inevitability. It was one of those places with exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs, charming in a way that made everyone feel like they were part of something curated. A private room had been reserved for Callista's farewell dinner. Of course it had. I spotted Vera first, hovering near the bar with a glass of champagne and a smile too tight to be genuine. She waved me over like we were on the same team, as if the week's events hadn't happened. I nodded politely, but didn't approach. The room was already buzzing with people, Callista's friends, co-workers, a few extended family members I hadn't seen since the last time they congratulated me on having such a successful sister. She stood near the center, radiant in cream, all teeth and confidence. The crowd rotated around her like planets to her sun. I took a seat along the back wall. No name card, no welcome, no need. Callista raised a glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight. I couldn't leave without a proper goodbye. It's not just a job, it's a chapter. And this," she gestured to the room, to Vera, "this is the village that raised me." Applause. "And, of course, my sister Yetta," she added, with a practiced softness. "You've always been the grounded one, the constant. I wouldn't be here without your quiet strength." I didn't move. I didn't blink. Then, during the lull between salad and the main course, a man I didn't recognize leaned over to me. "So?" he said with a friendly smile. "Are you just staying at Callista's place until you find your own spot?" I turned to him slowly, keeping my voice even. "No, I co-own that house." He blinked, surprised. "Oh, sorry, I just assumed." I smiled. "You and everyone else." I excused myself before dessert, but I didn't leave. Instead, I stepped outside the room and reached into my bag. The manila envelope was still there, still sealed. I returned just as Callista was prepping her final toast. "Before you clap again," I said, my voice calm but cutting through the noise, "maybe let's hear from the part of the story that didn't get a cameo." Heads turned. I walked to the front, standing where the projector screen had been an hour ago. This house Callista keeps referencing, the one she claims launched her, it wasn't just hers, it was mine. Bought with my credit, my income, my name, which someone conveniently removed without my consent. I opened the envelope and held up the deed. "This is what I signed. This is what they hid." Silence fell like dust. Callista laughed, short and brittle. It's complicated. No, I said, locking eyes with her. It was made complicated so I'd shut up. Vera stood, her mouth open, eyes wide. One guest whispered, "Wait, she co-owned the house?" I didn't stay to answer. I turned, walked out, and felt the air cool against my cheeks as I stepped into the hallway. A server passed by and paused, looking at me with a half-smile. "They clapped for the wrong sister," he said under his breath. I kept walking. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed. Notification from a social media tag. Someone had filmed it. My short speech, the envelope, the gasps. The caption read, "The sister they forgot had receipts." I started the engine. By Sunday morning, the buzz had dulled to static. No calls, no texts, no one in the kitchen. I moved like a tenant in my own home. Quiet, deliberate, touching nothing I didn't need. The microwave clock read 7:14 when I reached for the coffee pot. It was cold. I didn't bother reheating. I wasn't expecting to hear anything, but the voice drifted in from the back hallway anyway. "Vera." On the phone. "Yes, we're leaving Tuesday morning, just the three of us. Don't worry, it'll be better this way." I didn't move. Didn't make a sound. Just stood by the sink, cup in hand, while the weight of that one sentence pressed its heels into my ribs. They were going on a trip. A family trip. And somehow, the person who paid the mortgage wasn't included. Vera never said a word to me about it. Not even a feigned invitation I could politely decline. She just made the plans and assumed I'd figure it out by absence. She wasn't wrong. I set the mug down, went upstairs, packed a tote bag with a notebook, a water bottle, and a lightweight cardigan. I grabbed my keys from the hook and left through the side door, unnoticed. The park wasn't far, just enough distance for the breeze to reset the day. I found a bench near the fountain, where families passed by in cheerful chaos. Dogs pulling leashes, children waving bubble wands, couples walking in sync without speaking. I watched them without envy, just a strange ache I couldn't place. Something between relief and resentment. Exclusion isn't silence. It's a statement. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and stared at the blank screen. Then I typed, "I'm not angry you excluded me. I'm angry I spent so long earning a seat at your table." I read it twice, deleted it. There was nothing left to explain. Hours passed without me realizing it. The sun had climbed and drifted again. Shadows stretched long on the sidewalk when I finally stood up, stretched, and walked back to the car. Home was still empty. Vera's car was gone. Callista's suitcase had moved from the hallway to the foyer. Ready to leave before I could say goodbye, I suppose. I opened the fridge. Half the leftovers were gone. The table was set with 3 plates and folded napkins, even though dinner wasn't for hours. I stared at the settings, then reached out and removed one chair. Dragged it across the hardwood, took it to the garage, and leaned it against the wall next to the boxes of holiday decor and resentment. Back inside, I wiped the empty space on the floor with my foot. That felt better. They call it peace when I'm not around. I call it finally seeing them clearly. Later that night, my phone buzzed once. A text from Vera. "We'll talk when we're back." I let it sit unread. Upstairs, the house felt lighter. I passed Callista's old room, still cluttered with the trophies she never dusted, the framed photo of her and Vera from a school banquet. I didn't pause. In my own room, I flicked on the lamp and saw it. The box, still wrapped in navy paper with silver ribbon. The gift from Ellie. Tucked behind the garage bins because Vera said it didn't match the setup. I sat down on the bed and reached for it. This time, I picked it up. I peeled back the ribbon slowly, not for drama, but for something quieter. Reverence, maybe. The paper slid away without resistance, and inside was a hardcover journal, handmade, bound in navy fabric with a single embossed line across the bottom corner. "Write what they didn't let you say." Taped to the inside cover was a note from Ellie, folded in half. "For the stories they'll never steal from you, start with the one you never told anyone. about how you kept showing up even when no one saved you a seat. I pressed my palm against the first page and exhaled. Downstairs, the air had shifted. I couldn't hear anything but the ticking wall clock and the occasional bird scratch across the rooftop. Monday had arrived quietly, a kind of peace that didn't ask permission. They were gone. I didn't check to see if they'd left a note. I didn't need to. In the office, I placed the journal beside the manila folder labeled Evidence Now. There was no contest between them, no weight, no hierarchy. One held proof, the other would hold perspective. My phone rang. The number blinked unknown, but something in me recognized it. I answered. "Yetta," came the voice. A little raspy, a little cautious. "It's May." A pause. "I saw the clip," she said. "You did what I couldn't." May, my aunt. The one they stopped inviting after she dared to question too loudly, to not show up in beige. She continued, "They called me dramatic. You? Dangerous. But really, we just stopped being obedient." I laughed. Not a full one, but enough to shake something loose in my chest. "Maybe that's what healing is," I said softly. "Learning how to disappoint the people who demanded your silence." We stayed on the line for a few minutes longer, not saying much, just existing. It was the most honest family interaction I'd had in years. After we hung up, I walked through the house slowly. I passed the hallway, where Callista's framed quote still hung, something about ambition and rising above. I took it down without ceremony, carried it to the closet. In its place, I hung a blank canvas. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I finally had room to decide what would go there. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and began typing. A blog post, not a tell-all, not a revenge draft, just a quiet reckoning. The title, "Being Cut Out," was the start of cutting free. I didn't tag anyone, but I knew they'd see it. And this time, they wouldn't be able to rewrite it. Later that evening, I made a cup of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The breeze had picked up, warm enough to remind me spring had roots, not just flowers. I sat down, pulled the journal onto my lap, and opened to the first page. No one watching, no one clapping, just me, and the story I was finally ready to write. This time, I wrote, "The story begins with me."